Ian, thanks for joining me in the studio. Once again, let's start with our favourite Cabinet Minister, the hapless Chris Bowen. Here he is proudly standing in front of a big battery. He writes, the North Epping Community Battery is the latest in the 400 community batteries we are rolling out across Australia, step by step, day by day. We are building our renewable energy future. He looks very happy there in front of the battery. But Ian, what exactly do these community batteries achieve? What do we know about their cost, their capacity, their lifespan? That sort of detail I haven't come across yet.
Well, I think they're absolutely fantastic. We used to have a time when we all sat in our houses with reliable and cheap electricity. Now we've got batteries.
Community batteries?
Community batteries, and they last a few minutes.
Oh, great.
So you all go out to the community battery with a candle and you meet fellow power deprivees and you sit around and chat and hopefully you've had a warm meal because there's nothing to cook the meal with when you get home. And these batteries last a few minutes. Now, the one that's meant to run all of South Australia, if all the power goes, lasts 5.5 minutes. That's to keep an industrial state going. So you can imagine a community battery and it's going to last a few minutes. You get to know your neighbours, you make friends with them, and then the lights go out and you can get up to all sorts of mischief. I think it's just fantastic for community bonding.
Well, at a cost, because those few minutes of capacity are not cheap, are they?
Well, you'd have to sell your house soon to be able to pay the electricity and go out and live in a tent in the bush. But it's great for the community.
It's great for the community. I just like the term community battery.
Yes, it's a bit like battery hens. They're all crammed in together.
It's very 1984. Now, let's talk about the viability of electric vehicles. We've got another car manufacturer that seems to be having second thoughts. Senior Toyota boss says the company is still not sure about electrification and that no one knows the future. Well, yeah, we could have told you that. They're going to continue investing in combustion engines and hybrid technologies. EVs are looking less and less attractive. And you do wonder, Ian, without the market interference from governments, just how many Australians would be buying EVs right now?
Well, Toyota's the biggest car maker in the world. And other car makers have seen the light. For example, Mercedes-Benz has said, no, we're giving up on EVs. They're just not economically viable. They can't last the distance. They don't have the resale value. And we're giving it away absolutely and totally. And unless you have subsidised EVs, people are not going to buy them. And to make it worse, once you've got an EV and it's been subsidised, you try to sell it after you've done, say, 100,000 kilometres.
Yeah.
The value has just dropped through the floor. And I quite often do long drives. Last week I drove to Broken Hill in one afternoon, was there for a few hours in the morning and then drove back. Now, I did that 600 kilometres from Adelaide to Broken Hill non-stop. It would have taken me nearly 3 days to do in an EV. Oh. And it might have caught a light. If I'd hit a kangaroo, God knows what would have happened. So I think we stick with what we know is tried and proven and reliable, and the biggest car maker in the world cannot possibly get it wrong.
Well, yeah, Mercedes, you mentioned Mercedes, because I think they were going to go EV only, and now they've said, no, well, wait on. we'll just keep on doing combustion engines and hybrids and EVs until we know what the future holds. But you're right about the resale value, because we've got a bunch of EVs who are about to come out of warranty, and you wonder what the value is at that point, where at any minute when you buy it, if the battery fails, some of these EVs, the batteries cost over $40,000.
Well, that's quite right. If you buy an antique car, maybe a car that's 60 or 80 years old, the value goes up. Every other car you have, the value goes down. But if you want it to go down absolutely rapidly and drop through the floor, get yourself an EV, because the cost of replacing the batteries is horrendous. You've only got to touch the underside on the curb, and there are no technicians that know how to repair that. So you scrap the whole car. These cars are wonderful if you want to drive a couple of kilometres a day and go to the shops and feel morally superior, not telling people how slave labour created the cobalt for your car, if you live in the centre of the city. But if you live where you have to travel great distances, such as in rural Australia, or you want to plough a field, an electric vehicle is totally and absolutely useless and a waste of money.
They're ideal for those teal seats, those affluent inner city areas where, you know, the ladies might just be driving a couple of kilometres to lunch and back, and that's ideal. Now, to one of the funniest stories of the month, the UK Telegraph reports eco-friendly brake cables are being eaten by foxes after manufacturers switch from petroleum-based insulation to soy, forcing owners to wrap their cars in tarpaulins. Look at that car wearing a nappy right there. Since 2000, peanut and soy-based oils and waxes have been used on car parts, including gearbox insulation, primer bulbs and diesel injector wires. And the foxes don't mind a taste of this sort of insulation, Ian.
Well, you couldn't make up stories like this.
No,
I mean, it's
too good.
Fabulous. Now, if I were a fox, this would be terrific because you'd get free tucker. You don't have to go hunting. And the second thing is you get in underneath the car, you keep yourself warm. And the third thing is quite often they have a pan underneath, so you can actually sleep in that pan.
Oh.
So I think these people are rewilding nature by having soya and peanut butter or Vegemite cables on their vehicles. I think it's terrific.
The foxes are enjoying it, that's for sure.
What can possibly go wrong?
Now, an interesting piece in the scientific journal Nature entitled "The Importance of Distinguishing Climate Science from Climate Activism." Ulf Bunkton writes, "I'm concerned by climate scientists becoming climate activists, aren't we all? I see potential conflicts when scholars use information selectively." Oh, yes, this is all very problematic. Yeah. He also writes, "Without self-critique and a diversity of viewpoints, scientists will ultimately harm the credibility of their research and possibly cause a wider public, political and economic backlash." He's going to get attacked for this piece, but he's 100% right. You can't have scientists corrupting science with politics. This is where they lose faith. We saw it with COVID, and we've certainly seen it with climate change.
Well, I used to be an avid reader and subscriber to Nature, and when it turned into an activist journal, I gave up. So I'm surprised that such an article appears in an activist journal. But when a climate scientist can show me about human emissions, then I will believe that they're not activists. And what they've got to show me is half a dozen scientific papers that demonstrate that human emissions drive global warming. They've never done that. So as soon as you talk about humans and climate, you are an activist. So almost by definition, climate science, whatever that is in their language, climate science is an activist venture. So the climate scientists have to show that human emissions drive global warming. They haven't done that. And if they did do that, they then have to show that the natural emissions, which are 97% of the total, don't drive warming. So I think climate science is an activist activity, rather like many areas of sociology, like gender studies. That is certainly not an area of scholarship. It's an area of
Well,
activism.
I would have to point out there'd be very many climate scientists who would disagree with you naturally.
Well, that's because they live on frightening us witless.
Well, I'm not saying I disagree with you. I'm just saying there's a lot of climate scientists / activists who might disagree with you. Before you go, I've got to bring to your attention this fantastic piece from The Guardian 20 years ago. We often talk about climate catastrophising on this show, about these doomsday predictions. And let's go down memory lane to 20 years ago when this article appeared in The Guardian warning climate change over the next 20 years could result in a global catastrophe, costing millions of lives in wars and natural disasters. That was published February 22 in 2004. It's been 20 years, Ian. Another catastrophist warning that came to nothing. But now we've got energy policies being designed because of these predictions. We've had these predictions of doom and gloom for decades, but it seems like now the politicians are taking them extra seriously.
Well, if you read The Guardian, you get what you deserve. And the second thing is that we've had thousands of years of people predicting the end of the world by some catastrophe, and in each case they've been wrong, and if just one of them was right, we wouldn't be here. So I think when you've got to shout out about a catastrophe, then your argument is a very, very weak one. Science is married to evidence, and I have yet to see the evidence that human activities drive a major planetary process called climate change, let alone a catastrophic change.